I'm waiting on the late great Bob Andrews, who looks like he ain't gonna show. But this morning he said he'd be here, so who knows? He ain't dead yet. I guess that's a good thing. Might be some argument, but I'd miss him if he's gone. The situation here in beautiful downtown La Follette is about the same as always, and here he comes with an umbrella. Sit down and get busy. We done started.
We already on?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. I looked for you, didn't see you nowhere.
What?
I said look for you, didn't see you anywhere.
Right, okay. Yeah, I was, you ever just get something, you sit down, you can't find out what you done with it? I was looking for something like that, and plus, we're supposed to be having some inclement weather, so rather than carrying...
You put a little tinfoil on that, and that'd take care of all problems.
Say, mort for mort, or whatever it is, you know, and, well, inclement weather, so rather than carrying an umbrella, I decided I'd wear one.
Let me show you something.
What?
You know who that is?
Yeah, that's, is that,
That's Tail Gunner Joe.
huh?
Tail Gunner Joe. Joe McCarthy.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let me ask you another question. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, that's, Ted Cruz.
Why don't you look at him now? You reckon they're kin folks?
I don't know. I really don't.
They look more like Yasser Arafat. They look more like than Yasser Arafat and Ringo Starr.
Right.
Look.
Ringo Starr was pretty good.
Just look
Pretty
at
good
that.
match. I don't know really.
Look at that.
Now that looks a lot like Joe McCarthy. But Joe was just an over-exuberant.
Well, you know, they give him a hard time. Turned out he was right.
Yeah, I know he was. He was just a little bit over-exuberant, and a lot of people thought he was barking up the wrong tree, but he wasn't.
No. The Rosenbergs turned out to be spies, didn't they?
Yeah. And, you know, I told you that when I went down to the University of North Carolina in 1953, that every time I go down to the rat scale to drink a beer, there'd be all them printing presses just to run over. Well, I thought it was University Press or something. It turned out to be Junior Scales operating a communist printing operation there in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And Junior Scales' father was one of the most prominent people in Greensboro, North Carolina. They had a 3 or 4 story house, and they had a theater up on the top level, and they had Broadway productions brought down, and people would come over and watch the Broadway production at the Scales house. And of course, he was one of those ultra liberals that was so rich he didn't know how his old man made the money, you know, and he had all those guilt complexes that liberals have, the bleeding heart liberals, you know, about
being rich.
Yeah, being rich, and so.
Well, let's talk about Bobby T. How's your foot?
Bobby T's foot is doing good.
Didn't rot off?
Did not rot off.
Didn't have to have a foot transplant?
No foot transplant.
Will it still fit in your mouth? Will it still fit in your mouth?
Well, what I did, I bought a new pair of shoes today. So not these. These are 13, and they feel so good. I probably ought to got a 13 and a half, but I didn't.
Get your money's worth that way.
You see me coming around the corner before I get there, you know.
I knew a woman like that one time, but it didn't have nothing to do with her shoes.
Oh, it didn't, huh?
No.
That wasn't Dolly Parton, was it?
No, but she could have passed for Dolly, only wasn't near as good looking.
Well, you remember that woman that we saw dancing, and all you could see was the size of those Western boots she had on. they must have been that long, you know, and so.
Yeah, they had. You could use them to measure pavement with.
Huh?
You could use them to measure pavement
Yeah, you
with.
could, sure could. And,
What's going fixing to happen here?
I don't know why. What are they doing?
Well, the DOT put up a sign down yonder and they got a cover over it.
Yeah.
They ain't released it yet. I just wondered what they're getting ready to do.
I have no idea. They might be getting ready to plow us under.
Well, I guess that'll have to do. I've been treated worse.
You said that right, yeah. But, you know, it's been a real interesting summer.
Yeah, been kind of cold. Al Gore
Yeah,
must be back
yeah.
in Tennessee.
I guess all that global warming is what's producing all that cold, which it makes sense. You have to have heat in a refrigerator to produce cold. And you have to have an equal amount of heat to produce an equal amount of cold, I guess. So
Well,
I wonder if do you have to have an equal amount of cold to produce heat?
You're getting too physical for me.
No, I'm really, you know.
Well, now the refrigerator just moves hot air from one place to the other. That's what it does.
Well, no, it's not hot air.
Yeah. It's hotter than you want it to be.
Huh?
It's hotter than you want it to be. A refrigerator is a forced heat transfer.
Well, I know that. What it does, it takes heat and heats up a colder unit, which is a freon. And as the freon cools back down, it releases cold. That's what it does, is it, a refrigerator heats up the freon. That's the reason they compress it. It compresses it and it heats up the freon. And as the freon goes back to its natural cold state, it releases heat.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you're not saying that right.
I'm saying it like it is.
No, you ain't
Yeah,
either.
I am too. You say, let's say freon has a natural state of 100 degrees below zero. Okay, let's just say that, for instance.
At what temperature? I mean, at what pressure?
What?
At what pressure?
Well, let's say whatever pressure you're under, okay? Let's say the natural state of freon, not under pressure, is 100 degrees minus, okay? You take and compress it, and that causes it to heat up. Yeah, that's exactly what it does. It causes it to heat up, and you heat that freon up, say, to where it's not but 90 degrees below zero, and as it cools back down to 100 degrees below zero, it releases heat, which the heat it releases is colder than the air that's in the refrigerator.
No, I don't agree.
I do.
Well, you're wrong.
Why?
Because that ain't what happens.
Why doesn't? That's what happens.
It ain't.
What happens in a refrigerator?
Well, we're not talking about a gas refrigerator. We're talking about an electrical.
I'm talking about the cold
But
refrigerator.
we can talk about two different systems.
Right.
But the electrical is easier to understand, or gasoline even. You compress that freon from gas into a liquid. You do that outside.
And it heats up.
Well, yeah, it would, but that ain't. But now wait a minute. Just let me go through the whole cycle, and then you see if you agree. You got that there. You've got freon. You don't pump it in there as a gas. You pump it in as a liquid. It was compressed.
It's in there, period.
Okay, it's liquid form.
Okay.
Outside the unit.
Okay.
Then you run it into the evaporator. You run it into the insulated container, the refrigerator. And when it gets in there, you let it boil, because when it gets to the pressure, when you squirt it out in there into a bigger area, that evaporator, that larger area, when it expands, I mean, it don't just stay as a liquid. It boils at a whole lot lower temperature than water. It boils way down.
Yeah.
So when it boils,
right,
it
heated up, didn't it?
Yeah, it heated
okay.
up.
Okay.
Then you pump it back out, and you compress it again. But you're not taking something cold and putting it in there. You're taking something and bringing the heat back out. You got the right idea, but your flow chart's wrong.
Well, what I'm saying is you heat that Freon up.
Well, you compress it.
Well, you heat it up.
It don't make no difference whether it's heated or not, as long as it's compressed.
Hey, no, you heat it up. Have you ever felt an electric refrigerator?
You don't heat it.
Wait a minute. Have you ever felt one of the pipes on an electric refrigerator, one of them's hot, okay? That's heat.
Okay.
That's heat,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then another one is cold.
Mm-hmm.
That's cold,
Mm-hmm.
all right? The heat,
Then why do you need a compressor?
huh?
Why do you need a compressor?
Or the compressor actually is what heats the Freon.
It gets hot because it's compressed.
Yeah.
Okay, if you notice that pipe that's going into the refrigerator is a little bitty feller and the one that's coming back out's bigger,
It's what?
bigger. You got one little pipe and one big pipe.
Well, I understand that.
Have you
yeah.
noticed that the little pipe's hot and the big pipe's
Right, I
cold?
understand
Well, you're
that.
not heating it, you're compressing it.
Well, I know that, but the compression produces, if you didn't compress it, you wouldn't have any heat.
Well, you don't want any heat, you want cold. The
Yeah,
heat,
but you gotta get the heat to get the cold. Well, how come that pipe's hot then?
because you brought that out of the refrigerator back out here, and that's where you got your heat. You brought it out, and when it expanded, that's where you got your heat.
Well, what I'm saying is the compressor causes the Freon to heat up, and as it cools back down, it reduces
It don't
heat.
cool back down. It has to be compressed.
It will cool back down to its natural state whether you've got a compressor.
It don't have a natural state unless you specify pressure.
Have you ever had sprayed Freon on yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. You ever seen experiment with liquid oxygen?
Mm-hmm.
Where you can stick a
You ever seen
banana-
ether?
You stick a banana in there and you drive a nail with it?
Yeah. Well, have you ever noticed that you can take ether? You can take them there glass test tubes you used to use in school. You can put water in it, wrap it up in a rag, tie a string around it so you can whiz it around and around. And you can whiz it around and around and around and look at it and pour the water out. You can pour some more water in it, whiz it around and pour the water out. But you can squirt ether on it and pour some water in it and whiz it around and around. And whenever you get it back to here, that ether is gone. It's evaporated. And as it evaporated, it carried the heat away from that. And you've got ice in there instead of water. And that's exactly the way the refrigerator works. When it evaporates, when it goes in there, when that Freon goes in there in a compressed state and evaporates inside the coil, it absorbs that heat and takes it back out. So yeah, the pipe coming out's cold and the pipe going in's hot, but you don't care. You're not trying to heat it. You're trying to compress it. The fact that you compress it does make it hot.
Right now, how about a gas refrigerator that has no compressor?
Okay. That's a whole lot more complicated.
Very simple. You heat the Freon up, and as it cools back down, it releases heat.
No,
and
you don't
that's what
use
cools your
Freon. You don't
refrigerator.
use Freon. You
See,
use
when you heat Freon up, say to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, okay, and it's going to go down to 0. You heat it up to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and as it cools back down to 0, it releases heat. It releases its heat in order to get cool, and as it releases the heat, that heat is colder than what your refrigerator is. So you're getting cold from the release of heat on that Freon.
Well, okay. I'll come up with I'll come up with
Well, you tell me about the gas refrigerator. We used to have one of run off kerosene.
I know.
Of course, it didn't use Freon, it used ammonia.
I know. I was going to say you use ammonia instead of Freon in that.
Right. But your modern propane refrigerators uses Freon. which don't make a difference whether it's ammonia or what it is.
Well,
But the theory, as I understand it, you heat the Freon up as it goes through the refrigerator, it cools back down and releases heat, and the heat it releases is colder than the normal temperature in the refrigerator. It's got to release heat to cool back down.
you can't release heat in something and cool it down. You can't move cold.
Well, no, that's where you have fans on the refrigerator.
You cannot move cold.
What do you mean you can't move?
You can't move cold. You can't take cold and put it in one place and from one place and put it in another. You've got to move heat. Cold can't move. Heat
Well,
can't.
that is the heat, but it just
Well, my whole point is you're pointing it in the wrong direction.
No, I'm telling you.
Well, if you can make cold move, I want to know how.
I'm not talking about making cold. You're making the heat move off the Freon.
You're going to heat up and send it in there and it's going to get colder.
Didn't say. Yeah. What if you got a refrigerator here? Say your refrigerator is 70 degrees, and you take your Freon, which is 250 degrees below Fahrenheit, and you heat it up to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. As it cools back down, it will release heat to cool the area in the refrigerator.
Okay. Do you know, if you go down to Diggers and get you some of that propane, we don't care what you do with it.
Not only will it cook your hamburgers, it will keep your ice cream frozen.
If you build one like Bob wants it built, it'll melt. But you can go down to Diggers, 5625444, right in the middle of the road in Sawmill Holler.
Right.
He's got propane that'll heat or cool, and it'll smell like them there hickory and all them things Bob likes to talk about. Just however you want it to work.
All them 52 flavors?
Yeah, I think you had up to 57 last time.
All right. Well, what else are we talking about?
Well, I don't know. I noticed that the county commission has voted against putting in of course, I don't think they've got the final say on it,
Right.
but they've voted against putting in a landfill over in Elk Valley.
No, up at Dove.
They said Westburn.
Huh?
Westburn.
Dove is what I read in the paper. They said, I don't know, wherever.
They said Westburn, Tennessee, WSBORNE.
Yeah, I was thinking they were wanting to put it in up somewhere around Dove.
I don't.
But you did hear what the county commission said they had no authority to keep them from putting one there.
Mm-hmm.
Say,
Yeah.
all that was a symbolic vote.
I guess you're right.
Huh?
I guess you're right. But the whole point is, if them people got that land and you follow the rules of a landfill, you don't just go put in a landfill anymore. It's hard to throw out a cigarette butt anymore without having. If they follow the law and do that as they should, they ought to leave them people alone.
It'd be good for the county.
Yeah, and they're worried about people bringing garbage from New York. I don't care where it comes from. We don't get paid for it.
Right.
If we're going to spend all our money in $1.6 million, by the way, that we borrowed, and put all our faith in sunshine coming from outer space, going to come down here and make us rich, I got a whole lot more faith in New York garbage making us rich.
I do too. I sure do.
Scott County's got a landfill. We have to haul stuff over there to get rid of it. We have got some of the absolutely the stupidest people in the country, and there's some people down there that voted against that I really, that was a strange setup. The way I understood it, the ones that voted against it was the ones that usually vote for the people, and the ones that was more for it, and they just either stayed home or talked and didn't vote or something, but the ones that was more for it are the ones that usually
Or usually
favor the
more
people.
governmental people.
The other people usually favor the under the table money.
Right,
I'll just
yeah.
say that.
Right.
And I suspect that may be what's going on now. We've got to figure out how much we can get out of this, but that's just my opinion now. I'm sure we've got some best politicians money can buy. But now I think, that, I mean, everybody say, well, that's just because you don't want it in your back door. If there's somebody got land out there next to me, mine ain't for sale, but if they've got some out there next to me and they follow all the EPA rules, the only complaint I've got is the truck traffic.
Right.
I ain't got no complaint with the dump.
Right.
I hate to meet all them trucks coming out through there,
Right.
but the rest of it, I don't care.
Right.
And they say we're talking about land values. My land ain't for sale, so I don't care what it's worth. The less it's worth, the lower my taxes are.
Right.
I'm sure I've got neighbors who wouldn't see it that way, but
also, you know, I had a farm. I got some not much left on the farm that had a whole lot of these hooks and hollers and everything, you know. And the best thing that could have happened to a lot of that would come in there with a landfill and level it out. You know, and that's what landfills do.
well, you know, when they first come up with this idea of landfills, they were getting rid of them dumps where people just took it, poured it out. And they used to show what they could do. They'd build a landfill and then they'd have a golf course on it. See what it used to be? It was just a ditch full of honeysuckle and sawbriars, and now it's a beautiful golf course. And then people got putting stuff in there that maybe it shouldn't have gone in there and damaging wells and stuff. And that got landfills suddenly went from a salvation to having a bad name. But then we come along, I mean, if you enforce the regulations for landfills, you're not going to get anything in there that's going to hurt me.
Right.
Now, I mean, I'm for enforcing it. I don't want somebody sliding a little money under the table and sticking stuff in there that don't go. But as long as it's done properly, I think it'd be a good thing. A good thing for the county.
Too.
I
really do.
I wouldn't care if we turned every ditch in the county
into
into it.
Why we don't have a landfill. What are they going to do out there when they completely abandon the rock quarry out here?
Well,
They'll leave them pits and holes there. Is that what they
I don't know, but now it would it hold a lot of garbage, and it ain't leaking because it holds water.
Huh?
I said it ain't leaking because it holds water.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we'll never figure out how to do anything that'll work because
you know,
it's too sensible.
You're talking about the 4.6 billion they put on solar power. Is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Well, have you been down to the courthouse lately? You know, they're just about out of that $12 million they borrowed for that complex. And they still got a mud hole in a lot of places down there, and they ain't even got the walls up on some of those buildings, and they're about out of money.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll swear, how could that happen?
Well, you know, it happened happened by intention.
Did they get the offices up?
No. Well, they got the ones in the back. They don't have the jailhouse. It's up about head high on one side and flat on the other. And
I've never been able to figure out what they were doing down there anyway.
Right. I think they're still trying to figure it out. But what gets me, it's just like it always is on construction something. They don't tell you the true cost, because they know once they get it started, they'll go back and get more money. So that looks to me as to what's happening down there. They're about out of money, and they don't even have that one section even brought up to high level yet.
Well, I ain't been down there because I don't know how they're going to build it. I don't understand what they're doing to start with.
It don't make no difference to me, you know.
Well, no, they're going to do it their way anyway.
Right. So, well, I don't have this hat on because Ronnie's roof leaks. I just didn't
Of course not. My roof don't leak.
Take it off when I come in. And if you don't want your roof to leak, you need to come down and get some roofing metal from Ronnie or some shingles, you know, and
a whole bunch of other stuff.
Right.
What's Bob got up there?
Oh, well, Bob's got washing machines, and dryers, and refrigerators, and china cabinets, and I bought a beautiful entertainment center today. It's oak. I mean, it's really pretty. It's a gorgeous unit, and it's made by Broyhill.
That's the kind they used to give away on Price is Right. That's one of them good ones.
Yeah. And I knew old Jim Broyhill before he got to be a senator. He was a senator from North Carolina for a while, and Jim always had money, but he made an awful lot of money after he got to be senator.
Don't everybody?
Oh, let me.
He didn't invent global warming or something, did he?
No.
Al Gore invented the internet, but he didn't.
He's got complete locks on gold. I bet he's got a patent on global warming.
He invented the internet, but he didn't make no money until he invented global warming. I think the only reason he invented the internet is so he could spread the word about global warming.
I heard a story that this fella up in the D.C. area decided that once a month, for a week, he'd give free haircuts. He was a barber. And said this man come in that ran a florist operation, got his hair cut, and tried to pay the barber. He says, no, says, this is my community service week, says, I can't charge you for the haircut. So the next morning, there was a thank you note and a dozen red roses. Well, that day, a policeman came in to get his haircut, and the barber told him that he couldn't charge him for it, said his week for community service. The next morning, there was a thank you note there and a dozen donuts. Mm-hmm. Then a politician came in to get his haircut, and when he got through, the barber told him that this was his community service week, that he could not charge him for the haircut. And the next morning, when he opened up, there were 21 politicians at the door.
Yep. That's the way it goes, ain't it?
Huh?
That's the way it goes. And let's ride a good horse to death.
And I heard one more good story. Said they transferred this lady from social services out of Chicago down to Tennessee.
Oh, boy.
And completely strange surrounding to her, because used to just tenement houses and row houses and that sort of thing. So she was out cruising around in her neighborhood, and she spotted one of the smallest houses that she had ever seen in her life. She says, I'm just going to have to go and visit at that home and see what's happening. So she parked her car, and she went down, she knocked on the door, and the kid's voice answered. And the lady says, is your dad there? Says, no. Says, Pa left when Ma got here. She said, was your Ma there? Says, no, Ma left when I got here. So she says, well, let me ask you something. There's nobody here with you? He said, I'm the only one in here. She says, well, don't y'all ever get together or anything? He said, sure we do. Says, up at the house, this is the outhouse.
Yeah, I figured that out. Well, she probably wanted to check on, probably wanted to get some help for that latchkey kid.
Right, there you go. There you go. You know, they don't say a whole lot about, you know, there was a lot said about Trayvon Martin. You know, one-on-one altercation, and Smith & Wesson won, or Glock, or whatever it was. Did you hear in Oklahoma where they had 3 black guys who just randomly went out and shot this white guy in the back, who happened to be a student from Australia, left him face dead on the pavement and bragged about it?
Yeah.
Okay?
Done it because they're bored.
What?
Done it because they're bored.
Yeah, they're bored. Okay. Now, have you heard anything from Al Sharpton, or anything from Jesse Jackson, or anything from Louis Farrakhan about this?
No, but I'll tell you what I did hear. I heard about that. So I pulled it up on the internet, and it went to an ABC website. You know,
ABC.
Yeah. And it showed a clip on that, and it went through the whole thing and told about the boy getting killed, but it didn't mention anything about the three boys being black.
Right.
Not one word did it
Right.
mention. There was no mention of that, no mention of hate crime, no nothing.
Right.
Well, now when you go to that site, a lot of them sites that you go to, whenever you watch a news article, a news video, it will search back through its records and find something similar and put it up and play it. So that's what happened in this case. It showed that one with no mention of color or ethnicity or anything. And then it immediately started this new video, and I thought it happened this week, but I got to checking, it happened in Tulsa last year. It was these two white guys went out and just randomly shot a bunch of black people and killed them. And they had caught them. And but what impressed me, what I'm trying to get to, these are all thugs. They ought to all be killed. Myself, that's what I think, even if these guys were just 15, 16, 17 years old. And these other guys were 20-something and 40-something, and they was just out drunk and shooting people too, and they was shooting black people. They was doing wrong, but the way that the ABC reported one, there was absolutely no mention of color of the perpetrators, and this thing happened last week. This other one began by saying
by showing it was white people.
Two white guys went out, they'd caught them. These two white guys went out and killed all these black people, just randomly shot them, and they were questioning this police officer, this spokesman. Well, was this going to be considered a hate crime? They'd already put that in the mix. And he said, well, we can't call it that until we investigate it. Now, they were the news media was already pushing, ABC's affiliate was pushing that as a hate crime when it was still under investigation. And this other one that happened last week, they didn't even mention color, let alone suggested it might be a hate crime. And that was ABC condemned themselves.
Right.
And didn't have enough sense to realize what they were doing.
Right, I know that. Yeah, and this happens so often, you know. For a long time there, the Knoxville Sentinel, when you had anything happen, never mentioned the race of the perpetrator.
Or the religion, unless they were...
Huh?
They didn't mention any Muslims doing anything either.
No, I know that. And so, you know, you might as well just face up, folks. There's conspiracy after conspiracy in this country that the only people that are really, I guess, profiled is white people.
Yeah.
They're really the ones that are profiled, put down. They not only pay most of the bills, but then they are blamed for most of the problems.
Well, I think we ought to pass a law that you can't have a peephole in your door.
That you can't. Yeah.
Because if you look through a peephole, you're profiling.